Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to this podcast. We just pray you are super blessed as you hear this message. We know it's going to inspire you and equip you and help you in your life and in your family and in your marriage. So be blessed and encouraged as you hear the word today.
We are going to talk about emotions. And I love one thing that you always say about emotions is that they are the spice of life. But with saying emotions are the spice of life, spices just add flavor. They're not supposed to be the driving factor.
They're not the substance.
That's right.
That's a good point.
That is a good point. So
Spices don't drive anyways.
they don't.
Food doesn't drive.
They're not.
Although I have seen some food trucks out, so I take that for what it is.
Anyways, so how...
I like our listeners to laugh a little bit.
That's
keep
right.
things loose.
That's right. Especially...
They probably don't laugh at my humor much, but as a matter of fact, one of our kids said last night that people only laugh at me out of pity. I was like, wow.
Which you could have got really angry at that and then allowed your emotions to drive everything.
I had a little flicker on the inside. I won't lie. So, but anyways, okay, so emotions are not supposed to be the substance. They're not supposed to be the driving force. You're
That's right.
Yeah.
So can your emotions be trusted?
That's a great question. So,
And
I think what you're saying by that is that, so like if, you could ask me, can people really trust your emotions, Kent? Can they really trust how you're going to interact with them based on circumstances that happen? Right? That's really
Correct.
what you're asking.
Yes.
And it's interesting because definitely there was a time for me, for both of us, but definitely more for me, where my emotions were undoubtedly driving everything that I was doing. They were driving me. I was not driving them.
That's right.
And so people could not trust how I was going to, respond to things. And, we had, and I think we've used this example before, but it bears repeating that there was a time when we were going to do some kind of family thing, and you were like, oh, I don't want to do that or whatever. And I'm like, why? What's the deal? And then we discovered through that you were concerned how I was going to respond in that particular situation, like how my emotions would come out. And I was like, whoa, wait a second, you're holding something against me that for years I've been free from. And you're like, hey, you're right. Actually, I am. And the deal is that I had traumatized you because of my rotten emotions before when we were younger, even in high school. I mean, man, especially then, it was a train wreck.
Our emotions were a train wreck as teenagers.
Most teenagers, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. They get overwhelmed and frustrated and stuff, and they don't know what to do with themselves.
Well, and I can remember the first time you told me that I could control my emotions. And I was like...
And you slapped me. No, not really.
Actually, I got on the inside, I was so angry.
I don't even remember this.
I was like, who does he think that he is? And
anger wasn't an emotion I was concerned about. It was crying. So whatever was associated with that.
I usually did well up and then cry uncontrollably and then not be able to communicate and just cry. Because I partly had a problem with communication. But I don't even remember, well, I was probably, it was later in life. Like we had a second child by that point, and you were like, you have the ability to control your emotions and you should use it. And I was like,
wow, I don't even remember saying that. I'm surprised I'm still sitting here today.
And
I should be 6 feet under.
It made me so frustrated and angry and upset. And because I knew it was the truth. And so I had to start really journeying to recognize, well, it has to do with your thought life a lot of times. Is what are you thinking about? And then how are you positioning your emotions according to what you're thinking about And then do your emotions get to drive you, or should they just be adding like the flavor?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's okay to be angry if you're angry for the right reasons.
Right.
Sometimes it's okay to be upset and cry for the right reasons, but it shouldn't be that I was crying because I had just let so much frustration build up on the inside of me, and then it just controlled everything about me. And I would think things that were not even rational, which then would make me be upset, and I usually took it out on you, and hated my life or whatever. And it really wasn't that big of a deal when I learned to say what I'm thinking right now. And I've taught the boys this, especially the younger boys. I can find myself telling our youngest this a lot. Is what you're thinking about right now helpful?
Yeah.
And especially when they're upset, and he will be like, no, it's not going to help the situation. So what can we do that would help the situation? And that almost 100% of the time instantly de-escalates them being controlled by
That's good wisdom.
emotions.
Good advice.
And so I've done that with myself. I've had to stop what I'm like, this is super intentional. Stop what I'm doing, stop everything, and ask myself in my mind, is what I'm thinking about or how I'm thinking about this going to help anything? And usually the answer is no.
No, right.
So that it de-escalates any kind of emotion controlling me, and then I can start having the correct emotion to actually no emotion. I can become unemotional in a good way so that then I can think and process the situation clearly, come to solution, apply truth, go the direction that it needs to go. And so that's so good.
So, in all of this, I think about that really emotions are supposed to be an indicator of what's going on, or can be used that way. I mean, go back to the whole thing about emotions are the spice of life, and they're, joy and peace and things like that. Even anger, when it's used in the right way, can be a good thing. We should be mad at the devil, but emotions really can be an indicator of something, of what's going on in us. And so when we're happy and all of that, it's like, hey, I'm joyful, I'm peaceful, I'm whatever, and that's good. But also, if we have negative emotions that come out of us, it can be an indication that there's something wrong going on there and that we need to address it. So we're not supposed to let them be the leading factor, but we can utilize them to our benefit to realize, wait a second, I responded out of anger, I responded out of fear, out of frustration, with tears, I was sorrowful. And not that we can't express emotions in those ways, but it's not supposed to be the controlling thing. So emotions are not supposed to be the thermostat, they're supposed to be the thermometer.
That's good.
And so, with the thermometer tells you the temperature, but a thermostat is what controls the temperature. And you can be, and I've been in a lot of situations, and we know what this is like, probably everybody listening to this knows what this is like. You'll be in a situation where the whole, the temperature of the room just rises. And it's because somebody is not using right thinking, they're not using kind words, and their emotion is what's being emitted, and it's being the thermostat in the room.
That's right.
It's being the thing that is controlling what's happening in that room, and it's not supposed to be that way. So, going back to the question, can people trust your emotions? I think was how you asked the question. And I can say for me now, mostly, yeah. I mean, I have instances. I think I had one last night as I was going to sleep. I had a little instance where I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting, that. I got startled and anyways, whatever, going to the whole details. But I was like, okay, well, I'm not thinking quite right about that thing. And so it was an indicator. And I didn't, whatever, it was fine. But mostly I can say that my emotions are not the thermostat in the room. they're just an indicator. And I can say the same for you too. And I can trust your emotions. And I think you have learned to trust mine because
Yes.
we had battle scars from my emotions. It's a true story.
Yeah.
And I had to overcome them leading and controlling me. And 90 to 95% of it was based in fear, fear of rejection, which is also, it was basically all based in fear. And it was anger that came out of me so strong. There were other things, there were other emotions that were in there too, but that was the primary one. And that will leave, that will traumatize people. And so if you are somebody that has been very angry, then you need to go into your people that you're with. You need to go and repent and make things right and then begin to work in the right direction to not be led by that emotion because it traumatizes people. And this is the thing is that emotions, because they are used as the thermostat, they often control people. They control situations. They control, the atmospheres. And there can be a benefit to it if done properly, although it should never be for manipulation, used manipulatively or through intimidation.
Right.
But it can be like, for example, when we come into church on Sunday morning, we don't, the worship leader doesn't stand up or I don't stand up and be like, well, guys, I'm just really glad we're all here today, right? I mean, we're like, man, it's awesome. It's good to be
Right.
with you guys. You emit positive emotions, if you want to say it that way, and that affects people positively. And
That's
so
right.
there is a good use of emotions like that the Lord wants us to use
right.
it to positively affect people. But when you have, but even in those instances, like for me, I can say, I'm not just being emotional and just getting up there and just bubbling out and, I'm in control of it.
That's right.
And if you're going to release emotions, you need to be in control of it. And if you're not, what happens is that people, without even thinking about it, they will use their emotions and it's very subconscious.
It is
They
very
will see their how their emotions will affect people, and they will continue falling in that pattern. And if they're not careful, they can turn into an absolute Jezebel and just control everything. That's strong language, but it's the truth. And they'll see how their emotions, how their responses, how they go about doing things, and they'll see what it will do to other people. And they may not intentionally do it. Some might, but most people don't intentionally do it, but they'll find how that their emotions will affect other people, and they will get themselves into a pattern. And the truth is that when they walk into a room, nobody wants them to walk into a room.
That's right. But then I will say on the flip side of that, that we as individuals have a responsibility how or if we would let what other people's emotions are doing affect us.
True, very true.
And because then if we're in control of our own emotions, what it goes back to is like this internal, dialogue is like presenting everything up against truth and not being moved by fear and intimidation, those kind of things. And here's the thing is that if you are in control of your own emotion and somebody is, say, projecting their emotion onto you, and you don't allow that to have influence over you. Now, it could cause compassion, Darice, because you can say, I see that they're actually dealing with some fear or they are frustrated or something.
Yeah.
You can have compassion on them towards that.
Yeah.
But you yourself don't get irritated or cry. You become immovable because you can put that up against truth. Like the truth is what they're saying and what they're doing. I have a choice whether or not it's going to cause me to be in reaction to their reaction.
Right.
And so this is a high level of owning your own emotions.
Yeah.
And taking responsibility for your own emotions and getting to this place where you say, I am in control of myself.
Yeah.
And
Sounds
whatever,
like a fruit of the Spirit.
yes, self-control.
Yeah.
And whatever is going on around me, I don't have to allow to affect me.
Right.
And get rid of the atmosphere that I have created and cultivated within myself. And what will happen oftentimes is that you, because you are in control of yourself and your emotions, and you're not being moved by what's happening in the atmosphere around you, whether it be people or just atmosphere. Sometimes you go into places and it is a rotten atmosphere. And if you're not careful, you can let that start affecting your emotion. But you can actually be the one to bring the atmosphere. And most of the time, when you stay even, it will de-escalate that person because they won't be able to change
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So it's pretty awesome.
Yes, it is. And self-control really probably is the major key to handling your emotions properly and harnessing them. So it's not that we're not supposed to utilize them and enjoy them. And I believe that the Lord can even use your emotions to help you perceive things. I've had times when I've gone into worship and I felt really angry. And I was angry because something stupid that somebody did, and I let it bother me. So I was able to see, well, that's a me problem. I had other times when I've gone into worship, and all of a sudden I'll start feeling angry. I'm like, Lord, what's going on? Nobody did anything to aggravate me, or I didn't allow anyone to aggravate me. And then He would begin to show me a problem that was going on. I've had this happen before, to where He was really angry at the enemy in that area, how he was robbing from God's people.
That's right.
And so then I'll stand up and say, you know what, this is what the Lord's showing me. And so it was an emotion that the Lord brought to the surface so I could feel what it was that he was feeling.
Yes.
But the thing is, anytime you have an emotion, you have to go and say, Lord, what's going on
That's
here?
right.
You
That's
can't
right.
make a decision. Emotions are an incredible indicator. They are a terrible decision maker.
That's
You can
so
never allow
good.
your emotions to make decisions. You have to be in charge of your emotions all the time. All the time.
That's so good. That right there will speak
Yep.
forever and ever.
Yep. Yep. And so, one last thing I want to say about this, because we're about out of time, is, when it comes to just in communication with people, because I can think of many, many instances where being in meetings with people, counseling sessions with people, to where you'll have one person that will get real emotional with something. And, you were talking about how when people stay even keel, it will shut it down. Well, we don't have meetings really that escalate anymore.
No.
Like we've been in meetings where it went because we didn't know what to do, but now we just stay even keel. And sometimes people will just, and sometimes there's legitimate things that are going on at that moment that we need to have some compassion and sympathy.
Definitely.
And the emotions, there's no control. Them trying to be controlling and manipulative, they're just hurting.
Yes.
But oftentimes they'll get mad, or they'll fly off the handle, or they will start crying and whatever. And I've just learned to be stone faced, and I'll listen and go, Lord, what's going on here? And then sometimes the compassion of the Lord will come upon me, and I'll begin to move and minister to them. But then a lot of times it's just like, I don't feel anything, I don't sense anything, and I won't give into that. I won't allow people, because I know what it's like to be on the other end where people gave into me, and I wanted somebody to, I didn't want it, but I needed somebody to stand up against me and put me in my place. People that are emotional and driven by emotions are controlling people, and they need someone to, you don't have to be belligerent, but they need someone to say, yeah, I'm not going there with you. I'm not going there with you. You've escalated in anger, I'm not crying. You've escalated in crying, I'm not going to get angry. You've escalated in anger, I'm not going to get angry. You escalated in crying, I'm not going to cry with you. You don't go there, because if that doesn't get stopped in its tracks, whether you're talking about a counseling session, or you're talking about in a home, you're talking about in a marriage, you can be on a date. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. If you don't put a stop to it by saying, no, I'm not going there with you, then those emotions will just they'll go off the rails. And
then all of a sudden it's a mess
It's a
on
mess.
both ends. And people, like you said, you make decisions and they're not usually good decisions. And then it causes more harm and more trauma.
that's right.
And makes this big mess that's usually even bigger than where it started.
Yeah.
and unfruitful.
Yeah.
Whatever was supposed to take place is unproductive.
Right.
And nothing gets settled, and it becomes a bigger mess. A bigger mess.
Yeah.
And
That's exactly
so
right.
when we
So-
can control our emotions, then we can have fruitful, productive life and relationships.
And enjoy the emotions God gave
That's
us.
right.
And they don't lead us, but we lead them.
That's right.
Amen.
So good.
Amen.
Thank you for listening in on this conversation. We hope this has and will continue to encourage you in your marriage and family. Don't forget to download and comment and share this episode. You can check out Ward Ministries at wardmen.org. If you have any questions, please email us at info@wardmen.org. Keep your eye out weekly for our latest conversation on marriage and family.